These images of what we consider masculinity today are representative of monsters compared to what we considered masculine and masculinity in the past. And the fact that there's such a contrast sends a very legitimate message that we've digressed in some ways and compared to women. Um, Being masculine does not necessarily mean this. We're not these images of the past and representative of masculine in representation of masculinity, not masculine. And what we would now consider beta simps in some ways, or less masculine and more feminine, it doesn't make sense. Let's look at these fellas from the past who have smiles on their faces too. There's a difference, big difference. Yes, there's a big difference. And we could see this in these masculine figures of the past. George Atlas, of course, Jack LaLanne, George Reeves. What's happened? Well, what's happened is a degradation in our society and in how we value men. And basically, it appears to be an insecurity where men have to overcompensate for these insecurities by building themselves up more and making steroids part of their insecurity to compensate. And what would these men of the past, who were strong men, men that were considered to be uh, masculine and were relied upon to do a lot of things, build society, and even build our military, although the government and military does sculpt men to be what it wants anyway. And we don't have a identity defined by being a soldier or a military person outside of the military. We're real people, and this was more the case in the past. These guys would be considered betas now, for sure, and there's where the problem lies. Uh, we're we're foolish to be concerned with masculinity as much as misandry. And this comes to light when we're trying to make ourselves so different from the opposite sex. Well, we've made ourselves different from the same sex as well, which is ridiculous. And one thing that we need to really keep in mind is that an extreme form of masculinity with all the muscles and the less brains, it seems like, that goes with it, we also have a contrast in thinking of femininity as being the opposite of masculinity, and that women are quote unquote feminine, and that's the opposites of men and women. Well, that's not the case, because a lot of women are more attractive who are not quite as feminine, and they have a lot of muscles, they're in good shape. And being sexual is not being feminine. These are considerations we need to keep in mind and how we're being sidetracked on what we should really be concentrating on is developing the individual, whether it be a man or a woman, and giving them the best environment to develop themselves. That's when a man or a woman will form in their own right, not being forced and not being placed on this masculine, feminine type of scale. We need to think about the individual and have equality, equal rights, consideration, value, and status for each sex to have this happen. The hell with this bullshit of masculinity. Uh, it just it has no legitimate premise at all. Alan Millard, Men's Equality.